We all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
Here.
Councilman Cullen.
Here.
Councilwoman Eckhart.
Here.
Councilwoman Hudak. Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notation of the exits in the front and the rear, and electronic device, please put it on vibrate. Okay, first item on the evening is the public hearing for Barrett Hill. I make a motion to open the public hearing on Barrett Hill.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll waive the reading of the notice. Okay, anyone wish to speak to Barrett Hill?
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, and the public. My name is Richard O'Rourke. I'm a partner with the law firm of Keenan Bean, PC. We are serving as the attorneys for the applicant, Barrett Hill, LLC. This is a project that proposes the creation of a multifamily workforce housing district. In other words, this is a text amendment that would allow for the development of a multifamily housing complex in only particular zones and only after the town board had examined the particular application. Right now, all that's before the board is the text change so as to permit the possibility of this coming into existence. It's limited in the sense that it can only occur in the OP2 zone. It can only occur when the property is serviced by a state, county, or town road. It must be adjacent to a residential zone. And it also must be serviced by an existing centralized water and sewer system. And lastly, there must be a minimum of 25 acres for this to occur. In any event, the important thing is that this project proposes to permit the conversion of 168 senior housing units that were approved in 2006 but never built. And it is on a 29-acre parcel in the OP2 zone. However, I want to focus, if I could, simply on the text particularities that are so important here. The project provides for, within the multifamily workforce housing district, a set-aside for priority units. Of the 168 units, 50 of those units would be priority units, and that is as defined in the proposed text. What that means is that those priority units, certain segments of the population of the town of Southeast would be given priority. Those segments of the population would be full-time employees of the town of Southeast, full-time employees of the school districts that service the town of Southeast, persons aged 55 years and older, persons with disabilities, Putnam County first responders, qualified active volunteer members of the town fire department, and veterans that are living in Putnam County. Those are the ones that would be given priority, and we'll get into that a little bit further in a moment. This is not unusual. It is fairly common. There are many jurisdictions in the Hudson Valley that are doing similar legislation. The village of Rybrook, my firm has served as counsel for Rybrook for the last 15 years. They have workforce housing provisions that exist. The question that has been posed by some is, who are these people? Well, I told you what the classifications are, and I think what we have to bear in mind of there's 168 units, 50 units have the priority if they fall within those classifications I listed. Now, out of those 50 units, 17 of those units will be set aside as affordable priority units. And that is as defined in the zoning text. And there's been questions as to, well, you know, who are these people that would be getting this affordable housing? Well, you know what the classifications are, but there's been speculation as to who are these people. The only way of really analyzing that in a very objective sense, moving away from speculation and subjectivity, is to use an illustration with facts that are unassailable. And for that, what I'd like to do is just, and as you know, and we've set it forth in our EAF, we know based upon the U.S. Census Bureau that the median household income in 2014 dollars for Putnam County was $96,262 on an annual basis. So what that means is half the population of Putnam County households make more than that, and half make less. The affordable units will have the ability for those that make less than the median, and in fact, those that make less than 80% of what that median income is. So using the $96,262 as developed by the United States Census Bureau, that income would be $77,000. So the question's been raised, well, who are these people? Who could these people possibly be? Going to objective statistics, what I have, and I have copies for each member of the board and extra for the public, from the Putnam Westchester Rockland teachers analysis conducted by Northern Westchester Putnam BOCES. We have the salaries, the beginning salaries of teachers. And for example, in the Brewster School District, with a bachelor's degree, a beginning teacher, single, head of household, that income, that salary was $52,920. They're roughly $25,000 below the 80%. Those are the kinds of individuals, educated people, that qualify for affordable housing, and they fall within one of the priority groups. So someone could say, well, you have a bachelor's degree from college, that doesn't mean you're going to get a job in the Brewster Central School District. Well, oftentimes that's true, and you have to have further education. Teachers' salaries for first-year teacher in the Brewster School District with a bachelor's degree plus a master's degree, the first-year salary is $64,277. So we're still $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 below the income that qualifies for affordable housing. I use that as illustrations because setting aside the speculation, setting aside, you know, who are people that are eligible, the people that are eligible are professional people that fall within the categories that we're trying to help by having this kind of housing. I use that as an illustration merely because I think it's important that people understand what this proposal is for. And I think it deserves to be restated. The priority units are set aside for full-time employees of the school districts serving the town of Southeast, full-time employees of the town of Southeast, persons aged 55 years and older, persons with disabilities, Putnam County first responders, qualified active volunteer members of the town's fire department, and veterans that live in Putnam County. So that's the proposal in terms of the text. Terry Hahn is here, our consulting landscape architect and planner. Of course, Mr. Harold Lepler, a principal involved in a project, is here as well. And I think perhaps, Terry, you want to take them through so the public has a better understanding of the details of the project. And I will give to the board
Also, Rick, if you wouldn't mind, I should have done this earlier, but it is a public hearing, so I think it's more
Sure.
important for you to face the audience
sorry
rather
about
than
that.
us.
So, again, my name is Terry Hahn, LADAPC, land planners and principal of the firm. The project has two pieces, and over the last several months, we kind of get a little confused about the two pieces. The first, as Rick mentioned, is the zone text, which talks about the idea of workforce housing and sets a series of standards up to set the tone for workforce housing. We are also asking that this zone be applied to the property which is previously known as Mount Nebo Lot 6 and is currently known as Barrett Hill. Barrett Hill was originally approved, as Rick mentioned, in 2006 as senior housing, and that project received full site plan approval and all the necessary town, state approvals in order to construct 168 units. The 168 units were in 6 fairly large buildings that, with architectural review and all the various different pieces that the town of Southeast goes through, was fairly large, tall buildings. They were approximately 4 stories high with parking underneath and had an overall area of disturbance of which a considerable construction has already been completed. The area, if I could, here, the stormwater located along Old Route 22 and towards the back of the property is completed and is in place, and all the construction for the first 3 buildings over here have been completed. The proposal, in order to meet the requirements of the proposed zone text, has been changed a little bit within the scope here. The first element is that the requirement of the zone text is that there be only 1 and 2 bedroom units. The original approval for Barrett Hill was for all 2-bedroom units, and so they were quite a bit larger than the current proposal. And so the buildings are significantly smaller. They've got a lower profile. There is we go from 6 buildings to 8 buildings, but we are working within the original area of disturbance and the impervious surface. So this site plan remains consistent with the original approvals. The architecture also remains consistent, but you will notice that it's significantly smaller in scale and scope than the original approval. And so this is at the same scale as the previous one, and so it's a lot shorter. It's much more combined, and you have 20 units per building instead of the 28 plus the elevator core and the underground parking for the original approval. The overall proposal for Barrett Hill is subject to additional review by the planning board should the text change be approved, and also that it be approved for this particular location. So this is not the last discussion with respect to the overall site plan. It is simply the beginning point for that, because that will be referred to the planning board for additional review. Did I forget anything? Okay, I think, Rick, did you want to close into anything?
That's about it. The only other thing is I'd like to hand up the statistics from and the data accumulated and compiled by Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES in terms of what the salaries are, which indicate and confirm the fact that eligible teachers, eligible people for the affordable housing units are the teachers, even those that have been out 3, 4, 5 years. They still would qualify to be an occupant in one of the affordable housing units. So let me just give you those. Take one of each of these and just pass it on.
Thank you.
I guess the only other thing that I would like to do is that there was an expanded Part 3 for which the town board spent a considerable amount of time, and that we went through to environmental review, seeker review, and the discussion with respect to that. I'd be happy to answer any questions with respect to that as we go along.
Are you going to continue anymore? Are you ready for public comment?
It's a public hearing. That's our presentation so that everyone has a sense of what the application is about. And it's a public hearing, so
Okay.
whoever might want to
Mr. Lupper
comment.
raised his hand.
One of the issues related to all of this, and as part of this application, if the zoning text is adopted, we included as part of it our community benefits package, which is the voluntary provisions of this particular application if the text is adopted and ultimately if the floating zone is applied to this particular property up in Mount Ebo. Part of it is that clearly there has to be a marketing effort engaged to make sure that those that are in the priority groups are aware of the availability of this housing, as well as to make sure people understand what the priority affordable housing units are as well. We had stated that there would be a period of at least 6 months with each phase of construction where there would be an active marketing program so as to get the word out that there is this availability. That is something that could be and will be refined through the application process. It's something that we believe strongly, and we note that obviously, I know there's Mr. Clare is here as the commissioner, and we have representatives of UCP that are here as well, all of whom are very supportive of this application because it affects populations that are very important to them. So that marketing activity will be a component to all of this and something that we very much look forward to developing further.
The one other element that came into play in discussions over the last several months was this all sounds great, but how do you make sure that it happens? It's similar to what occurs at Stonecrest. The applicant proposes to use a third-party nonprofit to handle the monitoring. It's not the town board's responsibility to do that, but it is the management and monitoring company's opportunity, entity, not company, but entity, who will be the one who makes sure that this stays in compliance over time.
Public comment. When you come up, just state your name for the record and ask your question accordingly.
Yes, my name is Roger Billings. I'm a resident of Fieldstone Pond. And one question I'd like to know, what about the increase in traffic that this is going to generate? You're saying 163 units, but that might generate to like 300 cars. And we also know that it's an issue driving on 22 and Donsburg. There's a lot of accidents in that corner there.
That will be addressed during the planning process of it.
Right,
To
right.
determine it. They've already submitted an application with all the numbers, which we can make available to you.
Okay.
Actually, if you're in the area tomorrow, stop in.
Right.
If you want to scan to you, we can do that, but that has all been hashed over,
Recognized, right.
and we have a document.
It is online, too. You'd be able to access the expanded environmental assessment on our website.
Now, what about the water issue? That's
It's private private system.
a private system.
Yes,
that
will not affect
hopefully
yours.
will not interfere with all the other residents?
No, I don't believe
It's
it.
the same system, I believe.
Same,
Exactly.
one and the same.
It's all one.
You're sharing.
American Water Company or something.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Good evening. Hi, I'm Ken Ford. I'm chairman of the board of directors of Hudson Valley Cerebral Palsy Association, right here down in Mount Evo. We will be the agency that basically oversees the units that will be made available for people with developmental disabilities. I don't know how much everybody knows about this market, but it's a very struggling, very in-need group of people. In New York State alone, there are well over 12,000 people on a waiting list for this type of housing. These are people with developmental disabilities that can receive services through agencies like ours, funded through Medicaid, through the state. So therefore it has no impact on the local community financially, but would afford adult people over the age of 18, an opportunity to live in an integrated community and live as close to a normal life as the rest of us get to do. You hear one, I mean, just coming in tonight, I was speaking to a gentleman in the lobby who said he knew a person that their kid was 32, I think, years old, had cerebral palsy, and the parents took care of that child all these years, and now the parents are aging and ailing. And this is a person who is cognitively all there, but physically not, because the disease attacks your body. And many of our consumers are the same way. They're wheelchair bound, they could be quadriplegic, but up here, they're as smart and as astute and as bright as you and I, and brighter than me in many cases. This is a very, very vulnerable population of the state of New York, and right here in Putnam County, and right here in the town of Southeast, that needs assistance to the point where it's almost tragic. Our agency is prepared to provide the services for those people. It would all be supervised through the New York State Department of Health and OMRDD. The funding would come from the state, some of it from the federal government. These people would go through the regular process they would with the state of New York. But they're simply out there, hanging out there right now. Some of them actually homeless, believe it or not, just waiting for this type of project to come along to give them an opportunity to live a wholesome, happy life in an integrated community. These folks are not going to be all segregated into one building. They're going to be dispersed throughout the entire complex, because that's the whole theory, is to try and give people a normal, integrated life in the community, give them as normal of a life as possible. Some of the other things we're doing at the agency is we're creating micro businesses to give people an opportunity to work, people with disabilities. You can imagine a grown man with Down syndrome trying to go out and find a job. You may have met him begging at the supermarket. Well, that gentleman takes a tremendous amount of pride in that job because he has something to do. He has a place to go. He's contributing to his life. He's contributing to our lives. And these are folks who are very realistic in terms of their expectations, so that they're delighted to be able to find an opportunity like that. We're doing our farmers market. We're putting people to work. We have an embroidery business. We're putting people with disabilities to work. We're doing a graphic art business, and we're putting people with disabilities to work. And it's an amazing thing to me, because when I walk into like our embroidery business there, I almost can't tell, because it's an integrated system. We have able-bodied people, we have disabled people working in there. You almost really can't tell who the disabled person is. But the easiest way to find out is talk to them and find out who is most excited about their job, and you'll be able to figure out who that disabled person is. This is an incredible opportunity that doesn't come along very, very often, because this housing is typically done through the state and funded by the state, and we are in a state where all those dollars have disappeared. They've dried up. Not only have they dried up, but all the funding that we currently receive has been reduced. So agencies like ours are struggling and looking for many ways to be able to provide more services for people with disabilities. This is a golden opportunity for us as an agency and for the people in the community of the developmentally disabled. These are everyday normal people like you and I that just may be stuck in a wheelchair. These are not mentally ill people. These are not dangerous people. These are people that if you sat down and talked with, you'd walk away with a smile on your face and realize you just met a delightful person. They just need a break. They need a chance. And this is the type of project that is so sought after by agencies like ours. So, thank you.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
That you may or may not have, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, because I
No,
don't
no
know if you
problem.
know. I certainly don't know, and I always have applauded UCP's work, it's outstanding, but every year at county budget time, we have to hear the moans and groans, and I understand this, of what Medicaid costs are. By implementing this housing, will it actually save on Medicaid costs, will increase them, or will there be no change at all? Are we bringing people into the county that will use more Medicaid? I don't know, so I'm asking you. if you know.
No, first of all, you're talking such a small number as compared to the overall number of units that are there, that the percentage would be really insignificant. But these folks are getting Medicaid now. They may be being put up in a motel somewhere because they're homeless, and it's costing us, the taxpayers, a lot more money. If they're in a state facility, it's costing us, the taxpayers, a lot more money. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but the last time we went through an OMEG audit, okay, and compared our numbers with the state's numbers, the Medicaid dollars spent by the state of New York for a person with developmental disabilities in a state facility exceeded expenses over ours by somewhere around 400, 500%. So the more we can get people into a facility like this that is managed and run by an agency like ours, it's actually a reduction in the Medicaid dollars, Medicaid dollars that are going to be spent, and less effect on the taxpayer.
Thank you.
Any other one from the public?
Good evening. My name's Tom O'Brien. The project here, you know, if you're talking 168 units, there's more people that's going to come, which is good because that means they're buying more stuff at the stores. I'm sure you're getting taxes from this project as well, which it's just a piece of property sitting, so that can help the area. And everybody needs jobs. We know that, and this would provide jobs even when it's after it's built. There's always going to be some kind of service that's going to be needed, and that helps the local people, if it's a plumber, if it's an electrician, or anybody like that. So that's just something, in my personal opinion, to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, Ken?
Hey, Mr. Supervisor, all right. Kenny Clare, Putnam County Emergency Services. I approached Harold probably about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I wear many hats. One hat that I wear is very dear to me is being a volunteer fireman in Brewster. Deputy Chief, Fire Commissioner. One of the things I did talk to Harold about 3-4 years ago was the opportunity for our volunteers to stay in town. Many volunteers have gotten up, moved away over the years. Many volunteers. They can't afford to live here. They can't afford to live in our county. They can't afford to live in our town. Over the summer, we're very active. We have a lot of kids from college home, but of course, college is starting up again and they're moving away. They go to college, they never come back. And we ask the question, why don't you come back? We can't afford to live in the town. I think it's a great opportunity. Like I said, being in a position I'm in, we've approached many people of opportunities for housing, and they always yes to death say, yeah, of course, we'll help you guys out. We'll help out the volunteers. Not a problem. Never happens. I'm actually very excited about this because this is something like I said, I talked to Harold 4 years ago about, hey, can you buy us an apartment building for the fire district? Can you maybe do this? Can we do some sort of housing? But it's not just our town. It's actually affecting the county, whether you know it or not. Our volunteers are fading quickly. And if we don't get a grasp on it, we're gonna get paid services. And as a county, we definitely can't afford it. As a town, we can't afford paid services. Our fire district currently is paying for EMTs during the day, Monday to Friday, 6 to 6. It comes out of our fire budget. And there's many towns surrounding us that are doing the exactly same thing. Patterson is doing it, and now we heard the other day Carmel Ambulance is getting ready to do it, which is very sad. It's always been funded by volunteers. Volunteers have been running these agencies. So definitely consider what is proposed for you tonight. I think it's a great opportunity for us, for our town. And, you know, we'd be the first ones to actually give housing to volunteers and the fire service. Thanks.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, town board? Oh, good.
I just, if I may, I just wish to confirm that and make it as part of the record, the response received from the Putnam County Department of Planning, Development, and Public Transportation pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 239. Of course, the county plays a role in terms of any subdivision, site plan, or zoning change. And for the record, I just want to make sure you have that in the record, and that it's noted that that they have approved what is proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. You got the notice from the DEP as well today? Was that forwarded to you?
Yes, we saw that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to lead. I would like to begin by stating on the record that I fully support a zone text change for the Barrett Hill project, which would provide workforce housing, affordable housing for veterans, the disabled, and seniors. However, that can be all accomplished without changing Barrett Hill's age-restricted housing to non-age-restricted housing. I believe the only one who truly benefits from the removing the age restriction on the project is the developer, making the parcel much more developable and much more marketable. I first became aware of the Barrett Hill project back around July 13, 2014, when I attended a meeting at UCP. The people associated with the project wanted to change the age-restricted housing to non-age-restricted, and in return set aside 10% of the project units as affordable housing for Hudson Valley veterans. It was my understanding that there have been some federal or state funds available for veteran housing to offset some of the project's costs, and that veterans living in the complex would be able to use medical facility at the UC building just down the road. That scenario never came before the board. Barrett Hill's first application before the town board on May 11, 2014 for a zone text change requesting the age restriction be removed and replaced by a non-age restriction, and that a 168-unit project would reserve up to 25% of the units, 42 a priority units for civil servants, of which 40%, 17 would be affordable units. On Thursday, September 3rd, 2015, when the Southeast Town Board adopted Resolution 64, 2015, of its intent to declare lead agency on this Barrett Hill project by a 3-2 vote, the project took on a very intriguing political life of its own. On Wednesday, 9/23/15, the town received a disapproval letter from the Putnam County Department of Planning of Transportation from the county planner. Dear Mr. Hay, I have reviewed the 239 referral materials sent to our office pursuant to New York GMU Law 239M. The County Planning Department hereby recommends that this local law change be disapproved for the following reasons. After a review of the recently adopted 2014 Town of Southeast Comprehensive Plan, the proposed change would conflict with recommendations made in that document. Specifically, one of the implementation actions in the housing development section states the town should encourage provision of senior housing in appropriate locations, either residential or commercial districts. Specifically define senior housing to ensure that the needs of seniors are met while minimizing the potential for senior housing to revert to standard market rate multifamily units. Replacing the senior housing criteria with a proposed special occupancy criteria for the entire OP2 district is not recommended based on one developer's project. That has since changed. Due to this disapproval by Putnam County Planning, it would take a supermajority vote of the town board to enact the proposed law. This means that 4 out of the 5 members of the town board would have to vote in favor of the proposal for it to become law. 12 days later, on Monday, 10/5/15, a person associated with the Barrett Hill project informs the Town of Southeast councilperson during a private meeting that the county made a bad decision on the proposal, local law, which would have allowed the Barrett Hill project to proceed without restriction, and that they were going to get the county planning decision changed. 10 days later, on Thursday, 10/15/15, the town receives a letter from the Putnam County Acting Commissioner, Department of Planning and Public Transportation, requesting a resubmission of the Section 235M referred to as Barrett Hill. What I found particularly interesting in the letter was the following comment. Responses issued by this department pursuant to referral under New York State General Municipal Law 239M are appropriately issued by the Commissioner, Acting Commissioner, evidently inferring that the county planner was not. However, upon reviewing the previous Section 239 referrals from the county between October 29, 2014, and the date on that letter, October 15, 2015, 2 weeks later, shy of 1 year, a total of 19 referrals of New York State General Municipal Law 239M, one which was with Crossroads Project, were all signed off by the planner, not one General Municipal Law Section 239M, was signed off by the acting commissioner as alleged. In addition, since October of that year, of 2015, to Tuesday, August 16th, 2016, just a few short days ago, there have been another 13 referrals. And just yesterday, August 17th, 2016, when this very Barrett Hill project referral came to the town board with approval, signed off by the Putnam County planner, a reversal of the previous decision. Not one General Municipal Law, Section 239M, 33 referrals in the past 22 months, and not one of those referrals was signed off by the commissioner or acting commissioner. It was shortly after the exchange in October 2015 that it was brought to my attention by numerous sources that people associated with the Barrett Hill project were involved themselves quite heavily in the November 2015 elections. The word on the street that they were supporting candidates that would enhance the chances of obtaining a supermajority vote required to overturn the county's denial. However, on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2015, those efforts failed. The 2015 election produced no change to the 2016 town board makeup, leaving the necessity for a supermajority override vote on Barrett Hill. Shortly after the election, word got back to me that it was being alleged that I was responsible for the Jehovah's Witnesses purchasing the former Shine Pharmaceutical building located in Mount Ebo, and that the $6 million building parcel was removed from the town's tax rolls. At that time, I could not imagine where this was coming from or why. Then, 1 month later, on Thursday, 12/3/15, I was informed that there had been a meeting at the Barrett Hill project, on the Barrett Hill project that day at the Putnam County facility, attended by a minimum of 8 people. It is my understanding that 3 people associated with the Barrett Hill project were there: the developer's attorney, not the current attorney, and 1 other person, 3 Putnam County officials, the Putnam County Acting Commissioner, Department of Planning and Development and Public Transportation, the Putnam County Planner, and 1 other county official, and 2 Southeast Town Board members. The meeting was confirmed to have taken place, but I was never made privy to the discussions that took place or the outcome of the meeting. It was just after the first of the year in 2016 that I learned that people associated with the Barrett Hill project were referencing Jehovah's Witnesses during discussions on the Barrett Hill project. Was it being used as coercion, intimidation to support the zone text chain? Hinton property could be sold to them? I have no idea, but I can only surmise. Developers develop to make money, and if the Jehovah's Witnesses have the desire, need, or interest in a parcel, there is nothing stopping them from purchasing the parcel, and a commission is a commission. Recently, during a comment period on the Barrett Hill project, I stated that sometimes people try to do the right thing. What I just described above, in my opinion, is not doing the right thing. I mean, coming after me personally and other people just don't make it in my lifetime. I'm sorry. Just think, if all that bullying, intimidation, political gyrations described above had been successful, and Barrett Hill had been approved back in September of 2015, we wouldn't be here this evening discussing community benefits, agreements, floating zones, multi-force workforce housing districts. None of that been there. The disabled and seniors were only afterthoughts. I have been skeptical of the project since day one. In my opinion, it wasn't about veterans. It was all about removing the age restriction. That's where it started. It wasn't about veterans workforce. It was all about removing the age restriction. It wasn't about the handicap. It was about removing the age restriction. And it wasn't about seniors. It was about removing the age restriction. as they were the very last ones to be added to the priority list, was just last month. Going back to 2006, it was my understanding that the town board approved the age-restricted housing in the OP2 commercial zone. The rationale being commercial zones do not add students to a school system, and that age-restricted housing would have the same effect. Even Barrett's Hill July 15, 2016 EAF, page 3.5-3 states, based on 2014 and 2015 tax rates for Brewster Central School District, the approved 168-unit senior project would be rejected to generate $657,534 in annual property tax revenues to the school district. With no children to the district would occur cost of services from the senior project. That $657,534 is a net positive to Southeast residents. Then, in the EAF, goes on to say that the change to non-restricted housing would be a smaller benefit, but net positive of $236,748. The proposed text change will cost Southeast taxpayers $420,810 a year at a minimum, if you believe Barrett Hill's numbers on page 3.5-3 in the EAF. They identify the project as having 64 one-bedroom units and 104 two-bedroom units for a total of 168 units, consisting of 272 bedrooms. Barrett Hills projects that the project will only produce 26 public schools students at a cost of $16,185 per student, for a total of $420,810. Personally, I don't believe that number is severely estimated, and let me explain why. In the town of North Salem, just a stone's throw from the southeast border, there is a non-age restricted multifamily project known as Bridleside. Bridleside has 21 bedroom units, 40 two-bedroom units, and 5 three-bedroom units, for a total of 65 units, considered 105 bedrooms. Now, in this latest EAF, it says something about 75 families, but I have an official record, it's 65 units, so I don't know what the 75. So Barrett Hill has 168 units, Bridleside 65. Barrett Hill has 272 bedrooms, Bridleside has 105 bedrooms. Barrett Hill's projection is 26 students in the school system. Bridleside had 21 originally. I have 28 here, and I have it confirmed today. I've been asking for a while. I finally got it from the North Salem supervisor. It wasn't him I finally went to him because I wasn't getting it from another source, that there were actually 38 students in those units, 38. Personally, I just can't imagine that a 105-bedroom multifamily complex will produce less school-age children than a 272-bedroom multifamily complex. I'm sorry, but I don't believe the experts. I'll stick with common sense. In closing, let me reiterate one last time. When the Putnam County planner disapproved Barrett Hill originally, it stated, after review of the recently adopted 2014 Town of Southeast Comprehensive Plan, the proposed change would conflict with recommendations made in the document. Specifically, one implementation action in the housing development section states that the town should encourage provision of senior housing in appropriate locations in either residential or commercial districts. We have it in the OP2 zone, which was pre-approved. Specifically define senior housing to ensure that the needs of seniors are met while minimizing the potential for senior housing to revert to standard market rate multifamily units. Standard market rate multifamily units, also commonly referred to as non-age restricted multifamily units, but the same planner is now approving the project. If Barrett Hill project is approved and they are truly sincere about doing the right thing, they will add a clause to the community benefits agreement, a 99-year guarantee that they will graciously pay for the educational costs for every student that will attend the Brewster Central Schools over the 26 students projected in this proposal in order to lessen the tax burden on our residents. Also, there has been little to no discussion yet on recreation fees, and I think that should be addressed before this is adopted by the board. Thank you. Next.
Well, I'm in support of the project. I think it's a great project. But that being said, wow, I'm sorry, Tony, you kind of threw me for a loop there. I didn't expect all that.
I didn't either, but I had to tell the truth.
What I've heard, at least when I was running for reelection and all that, and I think it still holds true today, is that times have changed. The marketing plan of 10 years ago is no longer the marketing plan of today or yesterday. And I think it's the applicants, it's up to the applicant to be able to, prerogative, that's the word I was looking for, to be able to change and decide what he or she may want to do with their piece of land. And again, I just feel that times have changed. They've chosen to go a different marketing way, and that's one of the reasons for removing the age restriction. As far as the school children are concerned, there's been a lot of talk, one way or the other. I think that, again, we've reached out to the school districts. They haven't really said anything, whether yay or nay. Everything I've heard with my son going through the school system is that volume in school is down, so they can easily absorb the numbers. So we're not really talking about whether they can absorb 26 children or 36 children and whatnot. The question is whether or not we can absorb the taxes that are going to incur with that. I think it's been said before, and we'll say it again, is that I strongly believe my taxes are going to go up regardless of whether 26 kids or 33 kids go into the school district anyway. And I think in talking to other people who probably know a little bit more than I regarding taxes and all that, I'm not putting anybody on the spot here, but the school costs of the taxes, some of that is administratively. So once again, whether 10 kids go to the school or 100, there's a portion of it. I'm just carving it out. I'm just saying, if it's $100,000, $20,000 of that is already spent on administrative fees, so we're really talking about $80,000, so that makes the number go down a little bit. I just feel we're not really always comparing apples to apples here. And again, in doing the comprehensive plan and a few other things we've stated before, these are living documents. Things change, times change. We just can't, we're trying to look forward, we're trying to have vision, and I just think this is a way to proceed. We've heard from, Kenny Clare, who's a firefighter and stuff, and just sharing how it's important to have people who live in the community. I live here, and quite honestly, I agree. If I was moving in here today, I probably couldn't afford to live here. I moved in 20 years ago, and it would be nice to have some affordable housing. My son's going to Northeastern. He wants to be a pediatrician, but he just took an EMT course. And like Kenny said, if he volunteers, he can do it while he's here for the summer, but after that, he's gone, and he's probably not going to be able to come back unless I'm still living here and he can afford to live at home. We used to kid around when I was growing up, if you were at home at age 30, you were a mama's boy or whatever, and they made fun. Now that's a necessity that you're at age 30 and you have to live at home because you just can't afford to live in certain communities. But thank you.
Want me next?
Go.
Okay. Thank you, Tony and Edwin. And thank you for the presentation tonight. While it is a developer's prerogative to change their mind and to develop, that's what they do, it is not a right. And I think that's really important to remember, that the comprehensive plan update was only done in 2014. So we're talking about 2 years. It's not like it was the original plan. We made a special effort to update it. So I think that's important for the public to know. Another thing I think is important for the public to know, when I ran for office both times, the biggest complaint in Southeast and Putnam County is our taxes. And while the school might be able to absorb the students, and I don't think anyone has said that it couldn't, there is a cost. There is a cost for each student. So every student that comes into the district will cost us more money. And that just is something to remember, because I look at it as our fiscal responsibility to really bring the best development we can. I am what I really dislike is backing a project in and letting a developer rewrite our zoning. I am not against having affordable or workforce housing. I think that can be an excellent thing. I do think, and our comprehensive plan committee and all the residents who came to our meetings, and there were many, and our town planner, feels that we have affordable housing. You might not agree. but that is the conclusion we came to. We are not under orders from the federal government or to have more affordable housing. I did take a look at affordable workplace housing because I also am concerned with recreation fees. I do feel now that it isn't senior housing, we deserve recreation fees. Some towns with workforce housing charge 50% of their normal recreation fee. So I think that's something we really need to address if you're going to recoup some money for the town. Yorktown, and I think, and I agree, I think the affordable housing should stay in perpetuity. Most towns agree. And getting back to backing in, I would much rather, I think from a good planning point of view, we really need to rewrite this the way people in town want it rewritten. If we're going to add a component for workforce housing or affordable housing, I have no problem with that. I just don't like, this is much more of a haphazard effort, I believe. Yorktown makes it a requirement for all new complexes to have a, to include affordable housing. They also have a minimum and a maximum head count per bedroom. That's common too, and that can be very helpful, I think, especially because when I looked at those floor plans, I was surprised to see that every 2-bedroom unit in it, and there are 104, have 2 bathrooms, and that's a wonderful thing, but it does make it easier if you're going to raise children within that unit, I think, to stay in that unit and possibly have more kids in that unit. Menia has workplace affordable zoning. And there is a fee if a developer does not include an affordable component when they build. Pauling has an affordable housing board and a housing trust fund. Somers has affordable housing board. Affordable units must be available in perpetuity, not just for, marketing's different, but I think 6 months is much too short a time. Bedford has affordable housing. They have no priority groups. I know it was important to our planner, and I won't put words in her mouth, but she does not, AKRF is not a big fan of priority units, and I understand why. I think they can lead to litigation. East Fishkill has affordable housing. Their units have to pay up to 50% in a recreation fee. In Putnam County, Carmel, Kent, Patterson, Phillipstown, and Putnam Valley, none of our neighboring towns have affordable or workplace housing in their zoning codes. So I think good planning is a municipality's obligation to their community. It's obvious that this change to our code isn't good planning, but rather a workaround to our existing code. Good planning is never dictated by a particular, should never be dictated by a particular applicant. Good planning is never codified by backing into a particular project. And if we want to add an affordable component or workplace housing to our code, workforce housing, I'm sorry, we should consider what's right for Southeast. We spent, as I said, over a year on the comprehensive plan, and it really was decided that the senior housing where it was placed was appropriate and a wise place for it. We haven't really even gotten into TerraVest, which is 63 bedroom units. So it's 60 3-bedroom units that will fall into this new OP2 workforce zone. Even if we say now they can only have 2 bedrooms, those houses could lend themselves to the 2 bedrooms and a den. And I think they're detached houses that will really increase our our student count too. So I would much prefer to support a rewriting of our code that's much more comprehensive and does not just address 1 or 2, possibly 2 units or developments. I really think that it is the tail wagging the dog the way we're doing this now. So recreation fees, I think, are a must. I still am confused by this one page of 75 families, only 8 in the Bridal Side project. It was unclear, the private and public school, that did change a lot as well. So I think we need to really examine this before we pass it. I think it costs taxpayers money, and there's a lot more to it, to good zoning, than doing it this way. Thank you.
Liz?
You know, in the first instance, I'd like to point out the fact that since this project was first brought before when it was first brought before the board, and when the Putnam County Planning Commissioner had rejected it, that since that time, this project has changed. It's changed in a variety of ways, including but not limited to the fact that now it's a floating zone. It's a kind of a complex zoning technique, which after I have sat here for at least, I believe, 3 meetings, maybe more, and how it was explained to me and how our planner, Ashley, had concurred with the applicant, that this is the kind of a zone that is not going to result in TerraVest being able to be developed in some kind of a heinous way that will produce more and more of a burden on the town. Or at least that was my understanding. And I think, I do recall Ashley saying that this floating zone, which is a very, very new theory, well, it's not a new theory, it's a complex zoning alternative, which is going to ensure that this kind of a project can only exist where this project is being proposed. Okay? So that was my understanding of it. In addition, as far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, my understanding of a comprehensive plan is it's not a mandate, it's a living document that needs to grow and be changeable over a period of time. Yes, I know, like what Lynn had said, or I think Tony had said, it's 2 years old, but it's not a document that is mandatory. In fact, it is meant to react to the different changes in our neighborhoods. One of the different changes I could see in our neighborhood is that the senior citizen housing, at this point in time, at least what I've heard and what I've seen, it's not that it's not more important than giving the disabled, giving our veterans, giving our first responders, giving our teachers an opportunity to stay here and live here. But certainly, I believe at this point in time that it is more important to give our first responders, and it doesn't eliminate the fact that a senior citizen can indeed move into this complex. That doesn't change that. It almost appears as if, it almost appears as if some of our board members think that senior citizens are now out. It's only going to be these first responders, the teachers, whoever, and in fact, it might be only part of a heinous plan to put forth, ultimately, not even the first responders, not even the educators, not any of these people are going to be able to utilize this area for what it was intended to be, which is to provide ourselves with an opportunity to, as Ken Clare said, to keep the first responders here, as initially said, to keep our teachers here. And the senior citizens can still be here. So we're all afforded an ability now to target areas of our town and to have opportunities to bring people into our town and to have them be able to live in a way in which they could still be in Southeast and still in Putnam County. I don't envision this as a heinous plot. Quite frankly, yes, when the Putnam Planning Department did reject the first iteration of this project, I have before me that the planning was just received, that the Putnam County Department of Planning, Development, and Public Transportation has indeed approved the project, and it's signed by a woman who was the one that had rejected it in the first place. Now, all due respect, Tony, you would have people out there think that the reason why this has happened is because of some, let's call a spade, some conspiracy, that it's not right, and now all of a sudden, this is now the approval that was given, that I see right now, is the result of plotting by unnamed town board members. At least that's what it sounded like to me. I mean, I do know that I don't believe that happened as far as plotting. Oh no, that, there's going to be people who, there was a concerted effort to have town board members elected in 2015 that would support this because of a supermajority. I don't know. I mean, what I know right now is I'd like to hear more about the substantive objections to the project as opposed to that kind of an approach to it. So, I look at this, which is expanded environmental assessment form, which has all of this information in there. It has a lot of information. It's been vetted by the town board over the past, I don't know, few months. I never heard a lot about, all due respect, because maybe I missed it, I didn't hear a heck of a lot about recreation fees being a must. I don't have a problem considering it, by the way, but I didn't hear that. I didn't hear anyone sitting here at a public hearing tonight attacking the project, and you're the public, okay? I didn't hear that. I heard a gentleman in the back who came up here and had a bona fide concern regarding traffic, which has been addressed in this book that is online and that you can see. I heard Tony address the issue with the education. I think he said 26 school-age children. This book says that it is expected to generate 29 school-age children. And the last paragraph, it says, it is also important to note that at least some portion of the 29 students generated by the apartment project may already be students living in the district and enrolled in the Brewster Central Schools. Tony and Lynn respectfully bring up this other project in this other town that has different requirements. I don't know. I haven't been looking at that project. I don't know how that project can mesh with our project. And I don't really know whether the book that I'm reading right now, which says that there's declining enrollment in the Brewster School District, declining enrollment, is it just fantasy? Is it farcical? Well, I think that this project is going to be vetted a heck of a lot more than sitting here tonight. But what I'm impressed with is the fact that we had no negative comments other than those from Tony, respectfully, and Lynn. That's it. And it would have been nice if I could have heard more negativity that was expressed in a substantive way. And that's what I would have liked to have heard. Tony, you know, here's the education, here's this. I'm a little upset over the fact that there's apparently veiled, if I'll be kind and say veiled, allegations of impropriety. I know I didn't see any of that impropriety, but then again, but let's look at the substance of this. Let's look at what is being provided, and let's not instantly question the motivation of the developer. It's not like we're putting in some kind of ridiculously difficult or terrible people. You have people coming here and saying this for the disabled, it's for the public service people. I just, you know, I have, where are you? Back there. We have the heads. We have the head of UCP and his assistant here. So let's approach it that way. Now, I am in favor of this. I'm not going to sit here and question the motives of the developer or be conspiratorial about it. I want to see what we can do for these people in this society. And let me tell you something. See this book that I'm holding? There's going to be a lot more vetting. There's going to be a lot more vetting of this. And at that point in time, I would ask the public to come in. Ask the public to come in and to show us what the negative comments are. Go right ahead and do it. But as for me right now, I am in favor of this project. And it's for the right reasons, and it's because I've read what they provided. They have reacted to that which we have said in the town board. They have modified the zoning approach to this. I am satisfied that the modification is going to address the issues regarding a sudden influx of many, many people. Thank you.
I thought you forgot me. I thought you forgot me. You skipped me at first. Yeah, I wasn't really planning on speaking tonight. It was a public comment, but public hearing, so I was waiting for the public to speak, and I thought that was going to be it. But you know, I like you a lot, Tony. I respect you, but some of the things you said I think were just out of line. Just so the public knows, and I just scribbled some notes down, so I'm kind of going to be bouncing all over the place right now. But as far as the Brewster school population, there's no question about it. The population's down. I have 2 children in the Brewster schools. I actually go to Brewster school board meetings once in a while, as David Popper can speak to. They actually have a 2-minute limit now because of me, because I'm not allowed to speak. But anyway, they lost, I think, 100 kids 2 years ago, and this year I believe they're down another 100 kids in the school district. They were also sent this report. They were sent all the information about this project as an interested agency. It as far as I know, responded negatively or positively at all, but they were given it, that they had the opportunity to weigh in if they wanted to. This is only going to be 1 or 2 bedroom units, so we're not talking about 3 bedroom units. We're not talking about all that many kids. I think most of the people that are going to be living here will be newly married people that have young kids, and then they're going to probably move into a house. I don't see people staying here for 15, 20 years with children. As far as the volunteer firemen are concerned, Brewster Fire Department is the busiest fire department in Putnam County. I was actually speaking to Ken Clare about some mutual friends of ours that are volunteer firemen, a father and son, and they live in Southeast. The son just graduated from high school, and they're selling their townhouse in Hunters Glen, and they're moving to North Carolina. They can't afford to live here anymore, so we're losing 2 volunteer firemen because of that. As far as the rentals, there really aren't affordable rentals in this town for people. Recently in Patterson, a multifamily apartment house was sold to the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they kicked out 30-something families, gave them 30 days of notice. These people were had to leave, they had to uproot their children, and you know, a lot of them couldn't stay in the Brewster School District anymore. As far as the recreation fees, we didn't really discuss that yet, but I understand there will be a pool at this project. Most of the condos that have pools, those people that live in these complexes, they do not use our recreation programs. They use their own pools, and whatever programs they do use, they pay, like football or soccer or any of the other programs. So I don't see it being a burden on our rec department. And also the developer, just keep in mind, has been paying for years property taxes, school taxes on empty property that's been going to the Brewster School District, to the town, Putnam County. And as far as I kind of agree with Liz, of all the people that are here tonight, only one person raised some concerns about traffic. I don't see any major outrage here of people concerned about this project. I think that's something we have to think about. And just one last thing, I think Tony must have just read the Pelican Brief recently. I don't know if you ever read that book by John Grisham, but...
Well, it didn't happen to you, so you're not aware of it, but trust me, it's all true.
Okay, well, the Pelican Brief, you guys should read it. It's a little fiction, but it's about...
No fiction whatsoever.
Yeah,
None.
about, some lawyers trying to change the makeup of the Supreme Court, so I don't know. But anyway, that's it.
Tony, can I just add one thing?
Yes.
Or two? I don't think, I just want to be clear, this is not at all about worried about excluding seniors at all. I don't think any of us expressed that, and I know they're included. It was added as the last of for the priority units. I think it's important for the public to remember too that although some of these apartments will be subsidized for lower income, it's only 17. And what I brought up tonight, and I have brought this up before, Bob, and I think maybe Tony did too, is recreation fees. I've mentioned it at least at the last 2, possibly 3 meetings and in private meetings. And when I say private, there was not a quorum present. Also, I have brought up for the first time limits on occupancy, which now that I have seen by researching other town codes, I think is really important and something we might want to consider. But I also think this is not, let's not confuse things. I don't think anyone on this board is saying that the school population is going up. I think we all realize it's going down. We still have to pay for students. And it's by inches that our taxes are going up, and that's a good thing in many ways. But it does cost people money when it went from commercial to senior, neither of which put kids in the school system, and this will. So I think it's important to remember that. And Tony, I want to thank you because I think sometimes pulling back the curtain is a good thing for the public to know. They don't have to believe you, and there are always other explanations, but I thank you because I do think it's important.
Lynn, just when you say pulling back the curtain, as far as the substance or the truth or falsity of the allegations that Tony just made, I just want to make sure that I understand.
No, I think I believe everything Tony said was true. But you can ascribe different motives or motivation to people, and that's fine. And I don't think Tony ascribed that much in motivation. I think what he said was true. And I do think it's good for the public to know how things go through the process. And it is, even though the process is open, to a large degree, there are things that go on behind the scenes. And I think it's important for people to know that.
Okay, but that includes like when you had private conversations with whoever when a quorum wasn't present then, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to make sure. So the bottom line then is, you know, the fact that there are private conversations. you
Well,
know,
if they weren't confidential, that's different. Confidential is different.
private
When
con-
I say private, I mean that they weren't held at a public meeting. That's the difference. I'm not talking about if people on this board had confidential conversations. I don't know about them. I don't
Well,
have to know
by
about them.
very nature, it's a confidential conversation, but at this point in time, you know, I just want to make certain that everyone realizes the fact that if there are private conversations occurring where there's no quorum, or where a board
Right.
member might want to look into something a little bit deeper with whoever it is, you've done it yourself.
Oh, it's
I've done it on
completely-
occasion,
Right.
but, you know, decidedly, I really do think, you know, in all due respect to you, Tony, that there was an air around what Tony was saying that indicated that there was an impropriety.
No.
Okay, good.
No,
So
I-
if that's
All
the
I
case.
did was state facts.
Okay.
Everything that I have produced here in writing. I just want the public to know what I've been going through for the past 2 years. Your name is not out there in public when it's happening, okay? Bob's or Edwin's, my name. I did this, I did that. There's a lot out there in public. Maybe you don't hear it, but I'm gonna tell you right now, the public has heard it. The thing with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, I could ask some people right now if they even mention it, but I'm not gonna embarrass anybody tonight. But I can prove 99.9% of what's stated here. And I didn't say, all I said, there was a meeting at the county. I was not made aware of it, and I don't have to be aware of it. We all have meetings, which I'm not accusing anyone, I didn't accuse anybody of anything. There's no allegations. I personally believe, since day one, that the intent of this here, I said when I first started, I fully support everything I want to do with the disabled, the handicapped, veterans. I didn't say nothing against that. I just think that we don't need to change the age restriction. And a previous town board would have agreed with me. This town board evidently does not. But my name has been out there. You haven't heard it, but for 2 years, I've been waiting for this night. Because people are out there saying things, they know who they are, and I know who said it. So I'm not saying anything about what a meeting, who attended, I use no one's names, but it's happened. And it's just weird that, you know, you have I mean, it's almost like a domino and they all fell. So I'm not accusing, I just wanted one clear to record, because people out there believe some of what they heard, that I was responsible for buildings coming off the tax rolls, which I had nothing to do with. I did have the Jehovah's Witnesses come in like 2 days or 3 days before they bought the building to introduce themselves to me at Shine Building and say, you know, first thing I asked them, how much is this coming off the tax rolls? They said $6 million. What am I gonna do? And by the way, for those that are out there spreading bad things about my name, they also bought the Cintas building up on Route 22 10 months into my term, but I never talked to those people, so I can't get accused for that one, I hope.
Well, like I said, I'd like to have substance. That's what I would like to have. I'd like to have substance. You know, our viewpoint might be a little bit different, but I'd like to have substance. I think substance is Ashley sitting at the podium right now, who I hope is going to say something, perhaps Mr. O'Rourke and Ms. Hahn, but I'd just like to have some substance.
And if I just, you know, it's not unusual for projects to change in their scope. The town of Somers in Westchester, Heritage Hills, when that was built, that was originally 55 plus. I'm not sure the particulars, but it is now open to anybody and it's not 55
It was
plus.
litigation.
But the one thing I wanted to
Lawsuit.
point out, though, is had this been approved a year ago, none of this would even be taking place now. That's the amazing thing to me. Nothing would have happened. It was been
Well,
approved the
why
way it was
would it? I
approved.
mean, if it got approved, I'm not
No,
being
if it was approved back
confrontational.
then, it would only
If
been
it got
for
approved back
veterans.
then, you're right, there'd be no need to be discussing this tonight.
I
But
know,
it
but-
wasn't approved,
But
so.
it would have been, and in all the things that were taking place to try to get it reapproved. Okay, we have a difference of opinion, but trust me, it's real. Ashley, you're next.
Just wanted to go over what the next steps in the process would be for the board. So right now, the public hearing is still open. It seems that everybody in the audience had an opportunity to speak. If the board wishes, you could close the public hearing tonight.
We're gonna keep it open for 10 days for written
And,
comment.
and
In
leave
writing.
open a 10-day written
Especially
comment
since
period.
it's August, mid-August. It's
Yes.
not the most ideal time for a public hearing, as you
Yes,
know.
I would recommend leaving open a 10-day written comment period. Following the close, and actually during this time on Monday night, I anticipate that the planning board will be making their report and recommendation on the zoning. So at your next board meeting in September,
8th.
you could consider a seeker determination on the project, and if you were to vote for a negative declaration, you would also be able to vote on adopting the zoning at that evening. If you vote for a positive declaration, then that would put this into an environmental impact statement.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
No, I just, forgive me, I just want clarity in terms of you're closing a public hearing, but leaving it
Leaving
open
open for 10 days for
10
written
days for
comment.
written comment? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Thank
if
you
it
very
We
much.
haven't done it yet, but before we
Okay. I just-
close, I'll explain that. Anyone else in the public?
I like the word clarity, that came up a couple of times. I appreciate all your comments, Mr. Hay, and I want to support your opening statement about this starting, I believe you said, in a meeting back in 2014 at Cerebral Palsy Association, where this was a veterans project.
Right.
But you also stated that you walked out of that meeting thinking that this was going to be veterans, that funding was in place, that there were grants involved, and this was going forward. That's completely inaccurate.
I don't think I said that.
Then I heard you wrong, but that's.
No,
what
I said, I mean, I can repeat exactly what I said. I mean, I believed that they didn't have funding in place, but that was the project's purpose, was to put veterans there, was it not?
It was originally started as a veterans project, because as an
And then they were gonna
agency.
use the facility for whatever, right? To come down and use the facility for the doctors and whatever.
Right, but the way you stated it, it sounded very clearly like when you left that meeting, that all this funding was in place.
No,
That-
no.
That meeting was completely exploratory, because us as an agency have been looking for ways to try and serve veterans for many, many years. But the VA holds everything very close to the vest, and they don't want to let go of any of those services.
I
We
don't
work
read-
very closely with a retired two-star general, Ferg Foley, and have been for the past few years, trying to get the VA to open up. We left that meeting saying that we were going to try and seek funding to do a veterans
That-
promotion
again,
there.
I don't like speaking in public, believe it or not, okay? Absolutely hate it. Here's what I said. It was my understanding that there may have been some federal or state funds available for veteran housing to offset some of the project costs, and that veterans living in the complex would be able to use a medical facility at the UCB building just down the road.
Right, but by
That's the scenario.
stating that it was your understanding that there may have been this funding available is completely inaccurate, because there was an exploratory meeting to start trying to look for funding. Since then, we've been down to DC, we've been all over, we've met with congressmen, we've met with senators, we've met with the VA. The funding is not there. That was a completely exploratory meeting.
Okay, and that's how this all started.
Right.
And I may have been. I mean, you were seeking it. I didn't say you had the funding or anything like that.
Okay, just wanted to clear that.
I think I made it.
You know, that was an exploratory meeting. It was not, hey, let's go, this is going to be a veterans
No,
project.
I didn't say that.
Okay, thank you.
If I can speak for a moment, Mr. Hay, Harold Lepler speaking, without addressing any of the other comments, just as a clarification. Whether it was a year and a half ago, there was a referral to the Putnam County Planning Department. I believe if you go back through the records, you're going to find one of the most significant portions of that written application was not, and I'm not saying anything about it being deliberate or anything else, but was not forwarded to the county. It was a critical portion of the application. It was the 5-page petition submitted by the council at that time. If you read the application without reading the petition, you have a very different view of the application. I just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
Not to put the blame on anyone, that was,
No
I'm not saying it
blame.
was my fault, but we do have people, consultants, that provide us the documentation to forward to the county. I would have assumed that whatever you're saying was missing, was missing. But when the person wrote back and denied the application, that's not the rationale as to why that happened.
I personally spoke with the author of that document and the acting chairperson of that department and the deputy commissioner of that department and counsel for the county. They did not receive the petition. They never received it. What the planning department had responded to at that time in the negative was based on what was submitted without the most crucial document that was part of the submission. I did not say at any time tonight or before that that was deliberate. I believe it was inadvertent, but it made it very difficult for someone to review an application without that.
Ashley,
Thank you.
can you kind of shed light on that? Because I had heard something about that at that time. Where should that document have come from? I'm asking that of Ashley Live behind you, because that's how we get our documents to forward. I'm not putting you on the spot, but
The documents were prepared by the applicant's consultants in advance of a town board meeting. At the town board meeting, you received comments from both myself and the other town consultants that asked for substantial revisions to Part 2 and Part 3 of the EAF. In order to forward the GML referral as well as the EAF to the involved and interested agencies, all that is required under the seeker law is that Part 1 of the EAF and the zoning petition are sent over. So that's what was sent while we were waiting for the applicant to revise Parts 2 and Parts 3 of the EAF. Once those were submitted, we were planning on sending those, but they were not revised in a timely manner, so they were not submitted. So the county planner responded before we had an opportunity to forward the corrected versions of the Part 2 and Part 3.
so am I clear of any wrongdoing?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? When the corrected forms were sent, that made her rationale, the county planner's rationale, incorrect? I mean, her rationale was based on the comprehensive plan, that we had looked at it, that it was appropriate for senior housing. That's how I thought, what I thought the rationale was for asking for a supermajority. Am I wrong on that?
That is the rationale that was presented in her letter, yes.
And would it have been changed by what was, honestly, was that, I don't see why one is connected to the other. 'Cause I'm
What
not
I would
saying that-
say is that in the initial EAF that was prepared by the applicant, there was the land use and zoning section of the EAF was, had a lot of inconsistencies with the adopted comprehensive plan. There were a lot of references to, it was very much cherry-picked, and it
Right.
didn't provide the full context. What is now provided to the board and what was forwarded to Putnam County Planning is something that is more representative of what was in the comprehensive plan. So,
But that was a more recent addition.
and that's the
That was not in the-
that's the only time she's gotten Parts 2 and Parts 3. This is what she just got a month ago.
But I believe when all this occurred, at some point in time, we received a letter requesting, well, please, we need the additional information, and I believe that request was denied,
It
so.
was denied because the time limit had already expired, 30
But
days.
it was denied, and I think for other applicants, if it hadn't been this applicant, to be quite honest, I think we would have just sent it out, but we didn't.
At the time that request was made, they still had not submitted a revised Part 2 and Part 3 to the town board.
So we had nothing to forward.
Could I make just an inquiry? I think what Mr. Lepler said was that the county planner said that they did not receive a copy of the petition.
They did receive a copy of the petition.
Okay, so then I'm confused.
Okay.
If I may, we're dealing in hypotheticals on an entirely different application than the application that's now before the board. I was not counsel. I have no idea, but it's irrelevant. Forgive me, with all due respect, because what you have before you, we're not dictating, as you said, Ms. Eckhart, we're not dictating. The developer's not dictating. We have a right of petition, and this petition is entirely different from all of the colloquy we had that occurred a year ago and meetings and things of that nature. This is a petition that is for workforce housing. It's floating zoning. It includes senior citizens as a priority group. Forgive me, but I don't want there to be a misunderstanding of what is being said here. Bridalside is, with all due respect, irrelevant. I'll tell you why. It's 3 bedrooms. I'll tell you why. There's not a priority group for senior citizens. I'll tell you why. There's not a priority group for disabled people that don't have families. It's totally different. You have to judge this on its merits, not what happened a year ago, 18 months ago. You have a report that's back from based upon a general municipal law. You have a petition. You have the documents. I just would respectfully redirect the board as to the activity that's before you. Thank you.
And I would just like to say, I don't think Bridalside is irrelevant, because do you know how many 5 bedrooms are in the 65 units? I mean, 3 bedrooms, I'm sorry, are in 65 units.
I don't know
Okay,
any
it's
of their
5.
data.
It's 5, just so you know. So to say it's irrelevant when they predicted 21 students and there are 38, it is relevant. It may be a different configuration, but I think it does behoove this board to make sure that, that we look at everything.
I never
Consider it.
suggested otherwise. All I'm suggesting is that that is so totally distinguishable because of the number of bedrooms, because there are no priorities that are set other than the fact that it's affordable housing. What we're proposing is entirely different. Entirely different. That's my opinion.
And that's where we're going to go from.
And I know the Bridalside of North Salem, they're all new people that moved up to North Salem. They're not people that lived in North Salem
No,
and
that
shifted.
is not true.
I-
That's absolutely
Well,
not true.
It does,
I
look,
believe
you
most
see-
of the people came
They had
new.
kids.
Forgive me,
already.
with all due respect, again, that's another reason why it's irrelevant, because take a look at the priority groups that we're encouraging. We're talking about the EMS people that are here. We're talking about the school district employees that are here. We're talking about the volunteer firemen. It's totally different. But that's my opinion. You're entitled to yours. I made my record. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to make a motion to close this portion of the public hearing and allow 10 additional days for written comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Work session, discussion Article 4, Section 131-2, commuter parking.
You wanna just let people-
Yeah. Okay, in or backup, 13120, parking prohibited certain hours. Parking is prohibited from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. in Southeast Station parking lot and the Gold parking lot, which is next to 67 Main Street. One of our new parking enforcement officers brought this to my attention, and when he brought it to my attention, I said between 3 and 6. Many people, of course, work in New York City. They work different shifts, so people could not leave by 3 to 6 a.m., and I'm just going to make a recommendation, we strike this from the code.
Right, I know the last train that arrives from New York City in Southeast gets in around 3-something in the morning.
But-
So a lot of people do take that train back, but the first train that leaves is around 4. Basically,
Yeah.
Southeast is a 24-hour train station, and I fully support
And many
getting rid of
people,
any
and
restrictions.
many people go on Monday and
Right.
come back on Friday or whatever, so.
Right, and a lot of people leave, right, they leave their cars there overnight or for a couple of days, and,
So
you
for the
know,
next
they-
meeting, I'm going to bring this forward with, just removing it from the code.
Tony, that's local laws, you're going to have to do a
Right.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, so make a motion to
Set
set
a
a public
public hearing.
hearing for September 8th, our next meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, both. Okay, I make a motion to go into the regular portion of the meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I waive the reading of the correspondence. Resolution to settlement for certiorari proceedings 2226 Adam Place Realty. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Southeast does hereby accept the recommendation of its professional advisors and authorizes the town attorney to execute a stipulation of settlement, consent judgment, and order of consent in accordance with recommendations for the following. Petitioner 2226 Adams Place, tax ID 56.18-1-2, year 2013, 1.8 assessment, settled 1.8. 2014 assessment 1.8, settled assessment 1.710. 2015 assessment 1.925, settled assessment 1.8, and 2016 $2,050,000, and settled assessment $1,925,000. And be further resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized and directed to execute any and all stipulations, consent orders, or other documents necessary to reflect the foregoing settlements. So moved for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Lori.
Number 3, resolution, Wayne Sniffen retirement health insurance benefits. Now therefore be resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the supervisor enter in a stipulation of agreement in form, substance, and manner of execution as approved by the town attorney between the town and the union, wherein and whereby the parties agree to waive the requirement in Article 2, Section 2D of the CBA that the 15 years of service to the town be continuous in order to allow Wayne Sniffen to receive health insurance through the town after he terminates his employment with the town, provided such termination of employment occurs on or before October 1, 2016. So moved for discussion.
Second.
Brief discussion. Mr. Sniffen does have the 15 years, it's just not continuous. He had left town employment, came back. By him leaving early, he's been with us a long time, so of course his pay scale is accordingly. We will be able to bring someone in at a lower rate. If he leaves by October, it gives us the opportunity then to train someone to do the snow plowing for the winter, so I fully support such.
I mean, we did this, I believe, with Kevin Palmer.
Yes.
I mean, he was management.
It's
he
always
was
going to be
the-
on a case-by-case basis.
Right, and I believe there's another employee, so I don't have a problem with it. That came and went, as long as they have the required years of service.
The reason for this stipulation of the requirement is because of the collective bargaining agreement. It's embedded in the collective bargaining agreement. So in order to maintain the integrity of that agreement, we have to have this kind of action.
And we also have it in the agreement that this is to be on a case-by-case basis. This is not setting precedent. All in favor?
Aye.
And resolution, order calling for public hearing, establishment improvement district to be known as Birch Hill Highview Water District. I think this is the third time we're going to be calling for a public hearing. Unfortunately, the numbers have gone up. Right now, it's 275,000, I believe. I think the last time was like 250. And every time there's a change, unfortunately, we have to get authorization from the state controller's office. So that's the purpose of it. Ordered that the town board shall meet at the Town Hall, 1360 Route 22, Brewster, New York, on the 22nd day of September 2016 at 7 p.m., a date which is not less than 10 days nor more than 20 days from publication of this order, for the purpose of conducting a public hearing on a proposal to establish said Birch Hill Highview Water District pursuant to Article 12-A of the town law, with the improvements specified above, together with the environmental significance therein pursuant to New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, at which time and place all persons interested in the subject thereon may be heard concerning the same, and before further ordered, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish a copy of this order in the Putnam Press, the official town newspaper, and post a copy of the same on the signboard of the town in the time and manner required by law. And I will also be sure to send out a letter to each person in the district, because there's only 24 homes, to make them aware of it as well. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Recognition of the public? Recognition of town board members?
Question, do we have to meet briefly to approve vouchers, or what's going
No,
on?
we are having we have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday. I forgot what time, did we make it 4:30?
That's why I want the
4:30.
public to know,
Okay.
just so you can
Well,
explain.
it's on the website.
Right.
It's
Okay.
it's a regular meeting. Well, in a sense, we're really only going to be authorizing the signing of the vouchers because we're having this meeting tonight, and
Okay.
the vouchers couldn't be ready for this evening.
Okay.
So we're gonna do it next Thursday night at 4:30, right?
I believe that's what.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Who wants to make an motion?
I'll make a motion, we end tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.